Hello my darlings, and welcome to a new vlog. So this vlog is going to be an arc from NetGalley reading vlog because I have gotten in a lot of arcs from NetGalley and there is a reason for this. So I recently received a notification from the main library that I request to purchase my books that I have reached my request limit. I didn't realize there was a limit, but it turns out that there is, and I've smashed it very, very quickly. So I can still request books from my original library, but that one does take 1 year to actually get the books in. So when I joined this new library and I saw that they had a turnaround of only a few months, I was stoked because I thought, oh, all of these new releases that I want that the libraries did not pick to purchase, I can still get them to get it and read them in a relatively quick time. So that bummed me out because, as you know, I did my 26 anticipated reads. I've got a very small book budget this year. I've only been able to purchase some of the anticipated reads thanks to some viewers sending me some money to buy books. And whilst my libraries do probably, I would say, naturally purchase about 70% of the new releases that I want to read, there's still like 30% that they don't choose to purchase that I still want to read, you know, without having to buy them myself, because with my book budget too, I'm allocating most of it to purchasing either 5-star books that I've already read and loved, or books for weird ones, or books that are published by authors themselves, or self-published or indie. I don't want to be spending it on books from the big publishing houses that are more mainstream. I'd rather borrow those, because also too, if I buy them and they suck, I feel like I've wasted my money. And you know, at least if I bought a self-published book, I don't feel as bad because that money went to the author in a larger amount than the authors get through the big houses. But I'm rambling. So I was thinking, what do I do? Because I still want to read these new books that are coming out. So I thought, Chanel, go back onto NetGalley, because if they're published by the big publishing houses, they're probably going to end up on NetGalley. So I went on NetGalley and I have found some that were on my most anticipated list, and I've found some others that I was like, oh, that looks interesting. Most of these are audiobooks because, yeah, I don't know why, but I will get approved for maybe 9 out of 10 of the audiobooks I apply for, but only 5 out of 10 of the ebooks that I apply for. I don't know why, what the difference is, why I get approved more for one and not so much the other. Maybe less people apply for audiobooks over ebooks, who knows? Also, a lot of the ebooks sometimes do not have a send to Kobo function, meaning that I would have to read them on my phone. I hate that so much. I hate being on my phone. So I almost never now apply for any books that can only be read on my phone. They have to have a send to Kobo option. But yeah, so even though the library that was getting the purchase request in quickly has now cut me off, I can still request them from my other library. But yeah, there's books that I requested a year ago that were approved a year ago and were published last year, and I still haven't gotten them. So I love them. I thank them for approving most of my requests, but it's just, that's a long turnaround, you know? So yeah, I think I'll still be able to read most of what I want to read through my libraries, but I will probably utilize NetGalley more. If they haven't purchased it themselves and it's on there, I'll just go for it on there. So yeah, because I applied for 4 and I got all 4, I thought I'll do this vlog now, and I got approved the next day, which is crazy as well. I don't know, things aligned, you know. I have already listened to one of them, and that is Godfall by Jensen. This was narrated by Scott Merriman. So this is a sci-fi political thriller speculative fiction, and it's about a giant alien corpse that starts falling to Earth, and Earth goes into this absolute panic. They think it is a world-ending event, but then all of a sudden, very quickly, within the first chapter, you find out, oh, world didn't end. The giant did just kind of crash land in Little Springs, Nebraska. Please go on with your day as usual. But not for the inhabitants of Little Springs, Nebraska. Their lives are completely changed. It becomes a very inconvenient place to live. Naturally, the US government have put first dibs on the alien, have set up all of their perimeters, but along with them comes a new conspiracy theorist cult who are now worshipping this fallen god, and this quiet town is now just overflowing with soldiers, scientists, tiger mask wearing weirdos, and one extremely stressed and pissed off sheriff. And the sheriff's name is David Blunt, and he signed up to police bar fights and cattle disputes, not interspecies mysteries and politically explosive town halls. And unfortunately for him, bodies start dropping, and it turns out that there's a serial killer on the loose. Is it linked to the 3-mile tall alien corpse decomposing nearby, or is it a separate event? Maybe the real horror isn't the alien, but America itself. Main themes in this were definitely xenophobia, so fear of others, aliens, immigrants, ideas, change, power, secrecy, government overreach, small town identity, masculinity in crisis, and how belief systems can crack under pressure. The sound of this sounded so freaking cool, and even the cover, I was like, oh, this is going to be such a great sci-fi. I understand that the alien is from space, but this did not feel like a sci-fi to me. This was definitely a lot more of a murder mystery whodunit thriller with xenophobic assholes than anything to do with the dead alien giant god corpse that fell from the skies. That's just a prop. That's a footnote in this story. If you wanted to learn more about what the fuck is that and where did it come from and what's going on, forget about it. That's not what this book is about. If you love police procedural stuff and small town sheriffs who tell the FBI to fuck off because, you know, it's their town, their crimes, their jurisdiction, they're going to continue to cluelessly investigate the murder case, whether the FBI want them to or not, then you'll like this book. There's a lot of POVs in this, including one of the serial killer. I personally don't like to have POVs in the serial killer's point of view. I don't like it. This just wasn't what I signed up for. This is why I've given it a 2. I don't care about murder mysteries, okay? I'm not a thriller person. I definitely don't care about middle-aged male sheriffs with massive egos. He reminded me a lot of Hopper from Strange Things season 1. What other things did this remind me of? Kind of reminded me of Twin Peaks a little bit. But yeah, I was just so bummed when it very quickly, apparently, when it quickly became apparent that the dead giant alien god corpse is just background scenery and not the star of the show. Drugs also came into play. You know how much I love reading about drugs. And then obviously, you know, religious cults, not my thing. So this just turned out to be very much not my thing. I've come for the main course, and instead, upon arriving and sitting at the table, they've handed me a menu and said, oh, that's sold out. Sorry about that. Here's a bunch of other appetizers and amuse-bouches that you don't give a shit about. Enjoy. That's your meal. So, bummer, but what can you do? Move on. Glad I didn't buy it. I would have been pissed. I wouldn't have read it. I would have DNF'd even though I'd bought it, because I'm like, I don't care about you, Sheriff David Blunt, and I don't care about the killer, and I don't care about the people in the town. I want alien corpse. Thank you. Okay, next book. I've just started listening to it. Also, an audiobook. This is a rom-com by Adriana, and it's read by Lila Winters and E.M. Wild. And this story is about Ray Jensen, who finally works up the nerve to enter a BDSM club. She then kink meets her dream dom. And that guy is Grant the General. I'm sorry, I can't with that name. It's the General Bowman, who runs a very tight ship, rules, control, and no emotional entanglement. So they agree, well, not they, he lets her know that he cannot be her dom, because she's going to want more from him than he's willing to give. And then cut to the next day, and surprise! They're now office mates. He's joined her company and they have to share a space. So now it's all, these are the rules. Number 1 being no touching. Number 2, pretend that you've never been spanked by me, and definitely don't catch feelings. So you can imagine how that's going thus far. I don't know if I should tell you how I'm feeling about it now or wait until later. I'm a quarter of the way through. So this was definitely something that I wasn't certain I was going to love. Like I said, in the past with NetGalley, I would only request books I was like 100% sure. Well, not 100%, it can't be. But 99% sure, yeah, everything about this sounds like it's for me. But now I'm trying to use NetGalley as a way to read my most anticipated new releases. This lipstick is killing me. It keeps going on my teeth. I have sucked my finger so many times, popped it in and out of my mouth, and yet it's like a never-ending marker on my teeth. I might have to RIP this lipstick. Yeah, so this is one that was just, this sounds interesting. and I want to check it out. The pink cover got me, but it's helping me realize a dynamic I don't enjoy, which I had an inkling I wasn't into it, and I think this is definitely confirmed to me that I'm not into it. This is very much, there's no substance here. I'm sorry, but there really isn't. It is a BDSM rom-com. It's very much giving the hating game, because in that case too, you had to rival office workers. I enjoyed that more than I'm enjoying this in terms of their banter. With this one, it just feels very forced, very silly, the way that they're sniping at each other, just full of miscommunication and them being very immature. So I am rolling my eyes at these two grown-ass people just being ridiculous, being ridiculous. There's also a lot of these words. If you don't like these words, like me, don't read this book. I'm struggling. So there's lots of, you're such a good girl, sweet subby. Sweet subby. Oh, I can't. Oh, that one makes like nails in the chalkboard. Sweet subby. Hey, my sweet subby. No. For me, I just think of a Subway sandwich when I hear the word subby. Also, this book is over 400 pages long. And I'm like, does it need to be? Does it need to be over 400 pages long? But look, the audiobook narrators are doing a decent job. The guy is doing, I don't know, it's too much of like trying to be like authoritarian, you know, dominating voice, you need to be punished, and I don't not enjoying it. So see how we go. I'll laugh if this ends up being another vlog where it's just mostly 2 or 3 star books, but if that's the way the cookie crumbles, it's the way the cookie crumbles. So I'm listening to that. I do have an ebook, thankfully, and that is I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy, and I believe this is a collection of short stories that are horror, and I'm not going to read anything more about it than that. So I just want to go in blind and see how the stories are as I read them. The other audiobook that I have already been approved for and will be listened to in this vlog is Hemlock by Melissa Faliveno. So I will tell you about that once I start listening to it. But yes, I'm going to go on with rom-com and then also start reading Nat Cassidy's short story collection. I don't know if I applied for one. I haven't been approved. I think I haven't. But if another one of my anticipated releases comes up while I'm doing this 1 week vlog, I'll apply, and if I get it, I'll slip it in. But if not, if nothing else happens in the week, it'll just be this 4. I think it'll probably take me a week to get through all of them because yeah, audiobooks, unfortunately, I'm not one of those people that can listen on 2 times speed. I will not absorb anything. So I don't listen 1 time speed unless the person speaks very quickly. If they have a natural fast cadence, then I can do that on 1 time speed. But I find a lot with an audiobook narrators, they're quite slow and deliberate. And so I tend to do 1.25, sometimes 1.5. So yeah, I obviously listen a lot slower than my eyeballs read. So yeah, it'll probably take me a week to get through them all. Today, I'm taking my kids and their friends to Hotel Hijinks, which is this sort of room experience place. I'm expecting a ball pit. For sure there'll be a ball pit. It's just like different rooms in this hotel that you go and you do activities in them. So that's what's happening today, but I will catch you guys later on.
Read the question on the screen with the Y. To start and finish, you must click on
Group time! I have to press all the buttons.
Screen to select your square. Wait for the game to have its turn. Next question.
K-I-N-G. I.
Yes, you can.
Identify.
Select the answer using the
I didn't get it. Black bean beef with rice.
Oh, Mummy, do the book.
I've done it.
Is it coming?
I'm watching a little moment between Nova and Sylvie.
When's it going to come, Mama?
A couple of weeks. Sylvie's not slapping Nova in the face.
This definitely something that that's actually really cute.
Yeah, she's being gentle. Oh, what is going on right now? I'm just waiting for Sylvie to pick a fight. But she's not.
It's so cute. That's so
I
cute.
know, normally she chooses chaos. Yeah, I think she's still trying to choose chaos, but Nova's being so chill.
Hello, my lovely jubblies. I have finished listening to Rom-com by Adriana Anders. So this was a very sex positive, consent forward BDSM rom-com where there are discussions of boundaries, consent, power exchange, and trust, kind of wrapped in banter. Unfortunately, look, I gave it a 3. It was fine. It just wasn't for me. Our main character, she is a people pleaser who is not great with her boundaries, and the main dude is an absolute control freak, and I don't love those. It was very light on the BDSM, so there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that actually happened in the BDSM club. It was very brief visit there, and then it was just between the two of them, and he's a pleasure dom. There wasn't a lot of edging though, surprisingly, but like I said, there's just, some spanking, some you don't come until I tell you to, some you're gonna wear this vibe out and I'm going to control your orgasms from my lounge room. Yeah, it wasn't as kinky and hardcore as I was expecting, considering it's a book that's supposed to be based on dom sub BDSM sex. They did end up going to brat stuff. So he called her a little brat and she would be a brat. So that's a whole scene thing, which I don't love the brat stuff, to be honest with you. There was some humor in this. So for instance, he asked her, what does she think about when she's in the shower? And she is quite literal. And she was telling him, well, actually, I was thinking about what am I going to dress my cat up for Halloween this year? Should I put them in this costume or that costume? Well, obviously he was expecting sexy thoughts. I don't think women think a lot about sexy stuff while we're in the shower. Personally, that's probably not the place we fantasize the most, I feel anyway, especially if you're doing an everything shower, you're locked into your routine. But yes, this book solidified for me that I'm not into reading dom men and sub women. It just puts my hackles up whenever I hear men telling women to obey. Even though this is heavy on consent and aftercare, like I said, it's sensitively done. But yeah, I'm not into it. Don't want to be told what to do, especially when it comes to my body and my pleasure, so to speak. I think I will keep the BDSM stuff for my personal life, which, as you know, I do not have a sex life right now, but I think, I'd rather just leave it there than trying to read about it in books. I just haven't read a BDSM dynamic especially with the man being dominant and the woman being submissive, that I have liked reading about. And also there's not enough switch rep with the dom stuff, with the BDSM stuff, unless I just haven't come across it. It always tends to be the dom sub rather than the switch. So I'd love to read some switch BDSM stuff, maybe that is something I could enjoy literature wise. But yeah, it was very reminiscent of The Hating Game. And like I said, I just felt like, especially with the ending, it was just a bit silly, the choices that were made when they're clearly just very into each other. And yet they have to keep the conflict going for the sake of the book. And like I said, did not need to be over 400 pages long. It was okay. I just didn't love anybody in this book, didn't love any of the characters. And yeah, it was just, one sec, I'm just going to change my hair because I actually don't like that being down. So yeah, that was a 3 stars for me. Like I said, if you're expecting the secretary style BDSM, it's not here. Okay, it's very tame in terms of, BDSM. So I'd say it's a safe pool to dip your toe into if you're not sure whether you want to read stuff about BDSM. This would be a good starting place. So I have now started listening to Hemlock by Melissa Faliveno, and it is narrated by Kira Fix, and I think she's doing a great job. She's got a nice voice. This is about a Brooklyn queer with a cat, a boyfriend, long-term boyfriend, and questionable coping mechanisms, who returns to her family's dilapidated cabin in the Wisconsin woods for a quick fixer-upper trip. However, things start going awry, so she starts hearing things in the woods. She gets visited by an actual talking deer. And she was sober, not so much anymore, so she's back on the booze. So I guess this is heavy on the addiction, alcohol addiction, and that's probably why I'm not enjoying it, because it's starting to be a little bit, is this happening or is she just drunk? Is it real or is it alcohol? There's also been some self-harm mentioned as well. She's having a bit of an identity crisis, I think. She seems to be bi, so she's been into both men and women. She's in a current long-term 10-year relationship with a dude who she's left behind whilst she goes to her dad's family's cabin. This was heavily marketed as a butch black swan. I have yet to see how they correlate whatsoever. I just do not think that is an apt comparison thus far. It's very slow. It is very internalized. We are just getting all of this one character's inner thoughts, all of her internalized trauma. It's very depressing and melancholic. I don't like her as a character, and therefore just having to spend the entire time in her head with very little outside plot besides the kind of smart mouth talking deer who isn't funny. And I can tell they were trying to make that character funny, and it just hasn't landed for me. I normally love talking animal creature characters, but this one is adding nada to the story. It just feels very much like a vibes over plot book, so it's not up my alley. And like I said, if this is a character driven shadow work, you know, book about someone processing all their shit, I have to love the character whose shit I am forced to process with them, and it's not the case at the moment. So we're getting some kind of eerie vibes about the cabin, about a neighbor that's just introduced themselves to her that lives in an even more dilapidated, what she thought was abandoned property. So it's kind of giving creepy. I feel like it's kind of trying to emulate maybe Teaking Fisher style books or something like The Scold Crow. But yeah, at the moment, it's feeling like a 2 for me. And even with the narrator's lovely voice, I am struggling to give a shit thus far. So we'll see what happens. I'm not very far into it because I just finished rom-com yesterday, but I've got a lot of errands to run today. I've already baked a nectarine meringue shortbread cake this morning because I've got kids coming over, so I've cleaned the house, but I do have to pop down to the shops to just get some more tidbits. What I found works best with these teenagers is not cooking them actual meals because I don't eat them. So I just make a giant platter of snacks. So like girl dinner stuff. There'll be like pretzels and nuts and fruit and chocolate and biscuits and whatever. Just a smorgasbord of different snacky items. That's what they tend to actually eat, because I want kids not to go hungry if they come to my house. It's very important to me. So yeah, I'm just going to head out, go to the library. You would have seen that library haul on the It's the Vibe vlog. But that is everything, and I'll touch base with you once I have listened to some more of Hemlock. I haven't started the Nat Cassidy yet. I'm getting into bed very late these days because it's summer and it's school holidays and my kids are night owls. So I don't really want to read a horror right before I go to sleep. My brain is very suggestive. I have been dreaming about booktubers lately because I've been watching a booktube video before I go to bed. So I've dreamt that I went to Jan's wedding. I dreamt that I was having tea and a chat about tarot cards with Candy. And then last night I dreamt that I went Christmas ornament shopping with Lid. And yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm not opposed to it. It's nice. I get to I get to hang out with all these cool people in my head, in my dreamland. So, anything that's not a dream where I'm being chased, attacked, killed, anything that's not violent is fantastic. I will take any dream except those, because those ones leave me exhausted when I wake up. They are not fun. So yeah, I'll take the booktuber dreams, but I would like to go back to reading books before bed. Normal books don't enter my dreamscape. It's just the scary stuff. Scary stuff does. My brain just latches onto that imagery and goes, right, we're going to do a whole production about that this evening. So that's why I haven't started the Nat, but hopefully I would like to just get it started today because that's a bigger book too. I think that's over 400 pages. So I'd like to knock out at least 50 today. Fingers crossed, because I've also got to work. But yeah, catch you later.
Kitty number 1. Kitty number 2.
Hey guys, I have got updates for you. Thank goodness the leaf blower has stopped the short video. That was a nightmare to film, but let me tell you what I've been up to. So that's right, I was listening to Hemlock by Melissa Faliveno, and it was narrated by Kira Fix, who was fantastic. This is out on the 20th of Jan. Godfall is out on the 13th of Jan. Rom-com, the 27th. So they'll all be out by the time you see this video. Okay, so Hemlock, how did it go? Not good for me. This was not my book in any sense of the word. I gave this a 1 star. It's not a plot-forward novel. I think if you want clean answers or a cohesive storyline, turn around and walk away. If you want queer wallowing with an addiction spiral, you're in exactly the right place. It was bleak, it was depressing, it was repetitive, it was not engaging for me. She was just a really shit person, and especially shit to her partner of 10 years, whom she cheated on and gaslit and was just awful too. She was insufferable. I could not stand her, and because this was a deeply interior novel where you're just in her head and in her thoughts, I hated it. I hated being in her head and having to be just with her pretty much for the entire novel. The only creepy thing that happened was that neighbor that I mentioned that came to her house that supposedly lived in the abandoned house. That was the creepy factor of the book. Otherwise, there was nothing else really horrific or anything about it. It was just a depressing, moody, magical realism lit fic. The purpose of the deer, like I get it in the end, it's ambiguous in terms of what happened to her mother and her grandmother. So, you know, it's about the cycle of addiction and family inheritance and following in your family's footsteps and trying to break that cycle. Does she do it? I don't think so. She was giving Night Bitch. So if you loved Night Bitch, this could be the novel for you. Like I said, it wasn't for me. There was also animal death in this book, which made me very upset. So I actually hated this book and having to listen to it in its entirety, even though, like I said, the audiobook narrator had a lovely voice. I hated, loathed, despised the main character, and it just was not the book for me. It wasn't what I thought I was going to be getting. If I knew it was just mostly going to be about a, you know, alcoholic, miserable, toxic woman with issues who goes to a cabin to wallow in her bullshit and hurt other people, well, I wouldn't have picked it up. So not for me. It also felt a bit author self-insert. Now that's just conjecture, but that's how it kind of felt. I will not be reading this author again. They're not for me. I have started I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy, which is out on May 5th. So this one is going to be coming out in the future. So in this book, Nat says, yeah, we're just going to stop for gas. That's it. Just stopping for gas. And the next thing you know, you're trapped in a rest stop with really creepy googly eyes. You are emotionally eviscerated in a doctor's office. You are spiritually ruined by a ventriloquist and reconsidering yoga forever. Each story is in a new location where something is deeply, aggressively wrong. I haven't read all of the stories yet. There's still just a few more left to go, but I think that Nat's horror thrives on place. There's liminal spaces, everyday locations, and familiar settings that are just turned half a degree wrong. The stories are terrifying. Okay, some of them definitely deserve the horror label, but they're also playful. They're also compassionate. They're also relatable. I think Cassidy understands fear not just as like a shock value thing, but as an emotional ecosystem. You have fear, but it's also mixed with grief, with shame, with addiction, with masculinity, with power, with faith, with capitalism. This is the kind of book that you don't just read it It follows you home. It is a bit hard to shake off, and I did make the mistake of reading one of the books before bed. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to stay up for an extra hour and watch other things to scrub off the residue of that story so I don't take it into my dreams. So I'll tell you quickly about the stories that I have read thus far. So we have Rest Stop, which I gave 3.75. So far, that's been the longest story of the book. And this book is about a Jewish man who's on his way to see his comatose bubby, with whom he has a very complicated relationship. And then he gets trapped in a gas stop restroom with creepy crawlers and something worse. The scene with a bottle opener did turn my stomach. So I think out of all of them, this one was the scariest that I read so far, and I gave that 3.75. We then have The Unluckiest Girl, a Meet Cute #1, in which a girl meets a serial killer. I gave this a 2. I knew immediately what this was going to be about and just didn't do anything for me. We then have Generation, which is about the new babies on the block, and I gave this a 3. We have Nice, which is about a naughty elf who gets more than he bargained for. I gave that a 4 stars. This was fun and terrifying. Oh, my children are home. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. The kids had to catch me up and everything. They did at their dad's for the one night. Okay, where was I up to? Oh yeah, the fucked up Christmas story. That was great, 4 stars. The Art of What You Want, in which a businessman takes the art of war to a whole other level. I gave that 4 stars. The Lunar Eclipse, Promises Made on a Blood Moon holds true. I gave that 3.5. Laugh Lines, Girl Finds Her Daddy and Wishes She Didn't. That's a 3.25. Run for Your Life, Can't Fuck with the Beatles. That's a 3. Jubilee Juncture, The Most Ventriloquism, 3.5. At the moment, I'm seeing some things, and Nat is obviously very into the Beatles and very into his sense of smell. So that has been a repeating motif. It's reminding me of Tales from the Crypt, or is it Crypt Keeper? It's a show I watched as a child, which scared the shit out of me. Wasn't appropriate, but you know, us 80s kids. Our parents just took us to Blockbuster and let us borrow whatever. Did not check the recommended ratings at all. Watched so many things I should not have, but that was our childhood. So yeah, that's what the vibes are giving me so far. Yeah, nothing's been lower than a 3. Girlies, what the hell, man? Which is fantastic for a short story collection. This might end up being the highest rated short story collection that I have read thus far. So I've got a few more left to go, and then I'll be finishing that. But I did get approved, so I actually did apply for a few more arcs that I just forgot about, and I've just gotten approved for one of them. Once again, it is an audiobook, and this is The Salt Bind by Rebecca Ferrier. I don't know, can't remember what it's about. I'll have to refresh my memory once I start listening to it. It is currently Wednesday, so I do have enough time. I think it's only an 11-hour-ish audiobook, so I should finish it over the next couple of days, because I've got until Saturday to finish this vlog, and I will most likely finish the Nat Cassidy tonight. I probably will read it while I'm in the city on my lunch break, and then I'll probably have a little bit of reading at home, because I'm kind of taking the day off from work to take my kids out and have fun. So I'll touch base with you once I have finished another book. Turned off that notification thing. Bluebell. Oh.
Hello, darling. Love you.
My drink's more acidic.
Hello, my darlings. Let me update you on what I have read. It is currently Friday. So tomorrow will be the last day of the vlog. I have listened to some more and read some more. So I was reading the rest of the short stories from I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy. The last stories I read were Come, The Ring, Porno Edition. I gave that 3 stars. Into the Life of Things. Yoga's so good, it's an out-of-body experience, which I gave a 3.5. Meet Cute 2, The Scariest Thing. Love at First Cum Shot, which I gave 3. And A Fruiting Body, Let Them Eat Fungus Cake, which was also told in verse, poetry. I gave it 3 stars. So with short stories, I do base this on the accumulated scores from all the short stories and then finding the average instead of what I do with other books, which is I end up rating them based on how I felt about it. But with this, I do it mathematically. So I added up all of the scores. I did increase some of my ratings. I increased Nice, which was the Christmas one. And I think the one with the businessman, I also increased. So this ended up being a 3.4 approximately. So I'm rating it a 3.5 overall, which, like I said, for a short story collection is pretty much the highest I've ever rated short story collections. So it did well in that respect. I will definitely read whatever Nat puts out next. But yeah, there were some great ones. There were just no 5 stars for me, but I'm very, I won't say picky when it comes to horror, but I guess I am. So if you love horror, you might really, really enjoy this book, this collection of short stories. So I would say this is probably perfect for readers who love short horror stories that hit fast but then linger afterwards, and who appreciate when horror knows that it's horror and they like to play with the reader a little bit. So like I said, I think this is a bit more for the horror aficionados. I only got into horror last year, so I'm still a bit of a newbie. But yeah, solid 3.5. I am almost 60% through A Spell for Drowning, but this is also called The Saltbind on Goodreads. So this has 2 names. I'm not sure if A Spell for Drowning was the old name and The Saltbind is the new one. I don't really know. It's narrated by Charlie Sanderson, and I'm going to be honest, I don't really love the narrator. I feel like their voice is young. How old is Kenza? Let me just check that out. Maybe Kenza is this a YA? And I didn't realize it was YA because she is also acting quite young. Kenza. That is not telling me how old she is. No, it's adult. I don't know if they mentioned her age, so I could have lost that. Like I said, it's an audiobook. But it's very young sounding very YA. So let me tell you about this book. So this is set in Cornwall in 1779. So this is a historical fantasy. And in this book, smugglers smuggle, storms be stormin', and the sea absolutely refuses to mind its own business. We have Kenza, who is our red-haired daughter of a legendary smuggler, and she's a part-time apprentice to the local land witch. And one day she finds a dying sea monster washed up on the shore, and this ends up being a very terrible omen of things to come. So under the watchful eye of the seasoned witch Isolde, the local wise woman, Kenza ends up learning the old ways. So lots of herbs, tides, whispers, and the kind of magic that comes with a do no deals with the sea god policy. And fortunately, Isolde becomes gravely ill after acquiescing to the foolish request of Kenza. I'm like, Isolde, don't do it. This ain't your sacrifice to make. Don't do it, but she does it. So Kenza ends up panicking and does what she was told not to do, and that is she summons the Bucker, who is the father of storms, a chained sea god of the ocean, professional menace and troublemaker, pretty much has 0-star Yelp reviews. And then what follows is a lot of witchcraft, mortal peril, sea spray tragedy, and the creeping realization that the ocean always collects its debts with interest. I am almost 60% of the way through, and she hasn't quite yet gotten to the part in the synopsis that I was here for, which is making the bargain with this sea god. So I am very annoyed at the pace of this. We don't need 60% of a book of backstory to get to the point where Kenza is desperate and makes the bargain. Like, the bargain is the juicy bit. Her interacting with the sea god is what I'm assuming is going to be the good bit. So 60% and we're just leading up to it. Isolde has just gotten ill and Kenza's like, what do I do? It's my fault. Yes, bitch, it's your fault. How dare you ask her to make that sacrifice for you? So far, like I said, Isolde seems dead, not gravely injured. So I don't know if it's possible to save her. We'll see. But yes, I'm just very frustrated with the very slow pace of this book. The fact that it feels very YA. Kenza is a very stereotypical, feisty, red-headed character that reminds you of Merda. So that's what's going on with that. I would assume that she's definitely a teen. She would have to be to get a younger audio narrator, and the way that this is sounding, even though it's adult, listed as adult, she's probably 18 or 19 because yeah, it feels so YA. So look, if I had to give a feeling of what I'll end up rating this at the moment, it's feeling like a 3. It's just not doing anything for me. It's feeling very derivative. Obviously, my favorite character was the cranky, fed up, but incredibly wise witch Isolde, and her having to deal with these fucking upstarts that think they know everything and then end up cocking things up. So yeah, that's pretty much the only person I like in this book thus far. So Baka, we've only very briefly been introduced to via Isolde talking to them at the threshold of her door. And like I said, there's contention between the sea and the land, and she is the witch of the land and he's the god of the sea. So there seems to be a very tenuous pact involved, and I'm guessing Senses are, going to undo that by asking for help. I don't know if this is going to end up being a romance. Let me just check Goodreads. I'm sure this is going to be a romance. Historical fantasy. Oh, it doesn't say that. It just says witches, folklore, sci-fi. Sci-fi? Is that? I also got approved for another book. This is the last one that I had applied for, so there'll be no more surprises. I'm not applying for any more at the moment. This is How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days by Jessie, Sylva, and it's narrated by Maggie Bain. I don't quite remember what this is about. I think this is a cozy fiction, so this is a gamble for me, but look, I do like the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I do like Goblin core shit. Cozy shit, not so much, but give it a go. I think it's also gay. I think it's MM, if I remember, but I don't really remember. But we'll figure that out once I get to it. I do not do dual audiobooks. It is one audiobook at a time before moving on to the next. So that will be the final book. If I finish it, I might not finish it by tomorrow evening. Even though, thanks to that fucking mosquito, which I mentioned in my Kronk vlog, I had mosquitoes that kept me up until 3 in the morning, and then they woke me up every 30 minutes afterwards by trying to get a snack. I know I'm tasty, but guys, no. I was listening to the Saltbind all that time because I had to keep myself awake so I could try and hunt down insects. So I didn't think I would be 60% of the way through on a Friday, but I will definitely be able to finish that today. I've got a lot of work to do on my computer, so that's perfect for that. And yeah, and then we'll see Goblin. I might be able to, depending what time I go to bed, depending if there's still, like I know there is still a mosquito in here, I could end up having a late night. And then I've got Saturday all day as well, so I think I can get it done. Well, we'll see. But today I have to give my daughter her top back. I borrowed my teenager's top so I could be Kronk. I am taking the girlies and their friends to the shopping centre. Indy has something, what was it called again? Like Severus syndrome or something. It's to do with her ankle bone. It only happens with kids that are going through growth spurts. Anyway, she needed insoles. So we've got to get her new shoes because the insoles don't fit her current sneakers. We need wider ones. So I think they recommended New Balances. So I've got to get that. Indiana's party is next week, so I've got to get the gift bags done. She's got a birthday party this weekend, so I've got to get gifts for that kid. Just a whole lot of errand running today, and then we'll be back. I was going to go to the library, but no, I can't bring any more books in. These audiobooks have taken like the entire week, so I've got all these other physical books from previous hauls that need to be gotten to before I borrow new ones. So I'll borrow the new ones on the last day. The reserves expire, to try and extend that time. Just want to give a quick shout out to Rob. Thanks for the gift, Rob. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'll see you guys once I have returned. I'm definitely going to go to that American food store and get another Mozart bar. That Mozart chocolate bar, now my number one favorite. It's topped Gillian seashells for me.
I kind of really want her or the tea one or the one that. Okay, so I got Messenger, and there's a little poem on the back, and when you turn her around, she's got glitter.
Hey guys, so I have finished the last 2 audiobooks, 2 arcs, because Sylvie threw up on my bed at 3 a.m. So I've been awake for a long time, and that's what I chose to do in the darkness, just listen to the audiobooks. So I did finish A Spell for Drowning, or that's what it's called, The Salt Bind. And I've ended up reading it, A2. It was a folkloric, historical fantasy soaked in salt water, superstition, the grit of smuggler coves, and bone-handled knives. The main themes in it were female inheritance and mentorship, bargains, debt and consequence, and land, sea, and belonging. For me, the Baka, the sea god, was just not in it enough. They were definitely not the love interest. That was the vibe that I was getting from the synopsis. Romance, to be honest, doesn't really feature much at all. It's a bit insta-love. I wasn't here for it. I wasn't rooting for the romance. Oh my God, look at my hair. But I was, mostly very disappointed in the role the Baka ended up playing. It just wasn't what I was sold with the synopsis. It is mostly about, is it Kenza, her name? And like I said, she was just not a good protagonist. She really wasn't. There wasn't much to her besides being bratty and incompetent and stubborn. And I was also pissed with what happened to Isolde, the witch or the hag that she became. It was disappointing. Like I said, I didn't feel like I got what I signed up for, and it just felt a bit derivative, nothing fantastic. You might like it if you really enjoy moody coastal settings and historical fantasies where every spell has a price narratives, maybe. Wasn't for me. 2 stars. And then I went on to the final book, which was How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days by Jessie, Sylva, narrated by Maggie Bain. The narrator was fine. The characters have Scottish accents, so I just wasn't expecting that. So if you have an issue with Scottish accents, maybe it's not for you. It was fine. It wasn't anything phenomenal, but it was fine. This is about Pansy the halfling, hobbit, and the goblin Wren, and they both inherit the same charming cottage, hobbit hole. And instead of hiring a lawyer for mediation, they decide to do something much more logical and reasonable. They move in together and then emotionally terrorize each other until hopefully one of them leaves and gives up. So what you've got is forced proximity, very wildly different housekeeping standards, goblin smells, interfering wizards, magical forests, and the realization that the enemy isn't actually each other. It's the tall jerk threatening their home and the stubborn prejudices baked into their communities. There's a lot of domestic moments, a lot of cultural misunderstandings. There's sharing space, learning each other's customs, and choosing kindness over suspicion. So the main thing in this was the racial prejudice. Also, obviously, found family and home and belonging. In the synopsis, they're like, oh, if you love Lord of the Rings, you love this. Dude, like even the cover, that's a hobbit hole. That's a hobbit home. The author was like, you know what? I'm going to base this in the Shire, and I'm going to use a lot of the same species in Lord of the Rings, and I'm just going to use it as the kind of backdrop setting upon which I build the story. The main character, the halfling, they're hobbits, okay? She's a hobbit. She loves to eat. food is her thing. She starts off the book looking for truffles because she wants to make some truffle butter. And then you've got Ren, who's basically enacting squatters' rights. And like I said, the racial stuff in this was heavy, a lot of racism. If you didn't know who they're racist against, the goblins. Everyone hates the goblins. The goblins have worked for the Dark Lord, Sauron. And even though the battle for the One Ring is over, it's the Lord of the Rings, guys. Everyone's still not liking the goblins. The goblins are like, well, the Dark Lord was the only one who was offering us employment, and we have to eat too. What do you expect us to do? And then this all culminates in like a scene towards the end that felt very full on for a cozy novel, because most of the time it is very cozy. And then all of a sudden there's violence, and like I said, the racial stuff was a bit ick. This wasn't what I was hoping it was going to be. So yes, normally I don't really love cozy, but they threw the Lord of the Rings in there, and I'm like, okay. And How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which is a classic, iconic rom-com from the era that I grew up in. And so I was expecting really funny banter. I was expecting tension, mostly, like I said, comedy, and instead I got lots and lots of bickering, which was very unpleasant to listen to. It does not endear you to the characters, and I'm sorry, I didn't actually want them to be a couple. I was getting friend vibes. It felt very forced, the relationship, and it actually gave me the ick for some reason, because I was like, these guys are just friends. But like I said, most of the book is them just arguing, and it's not clever and it's not funny, and so it's just tiring and irritating. And like I said, like, this is all that it is here. Like I said, besides the racism that's also there and coming through their bantering with each other as well. Yeah, so I didn't like this one. Obviously, probably better done cozy fantasy would be Legends and Lattes and The House Witch, which I definitely enjoyed more than this. But like the way this was, once again, marketed and presented to me was that it would be funny. But this is going to be a comedy. You've got a hobbit and a goblin who don't get along, and they both want the same house, and how they're going to get rid of the other person. I was expecting a hilarious hijinks. So I also gave this a 2. This was like, this arc selection, Jesus. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I would have, let me just check what all the books were, just in case. I would have DNF'd every single one of these except for Nat Cassidy's I Know a Place if I was not doing this for NetGalley. Every single one of them. And as you can see, like, the only one that ended up being okay out of the ones I would have DNF'd was the rom-com, which I gave a 3. But a 3, like, you justifiable in DNFing to end up with a 3. I didn't like them. And yeah, I think it's one of those things where I had just different preconceptions of what the book was going to be like based on the synopsis, and it just didn't end up being what I thought it was going to be. I think the one that really disappointed me the most was Hemlock. Just was not what I was expecting whatsoever. But a lot of these, I'm just going through, a lot of them, Godfall was so misleading too. Fucking on the cover, the God falling is on the cover. What do you mean he's a side, he's a footnote, he's a background prop? What do you mean? This is just a book about a fucking male detective who can't sustain a romantic relationship trying to figure out who the human serial killer is. Like, what? No. And like I said, Hemlock, yeah, that was someone with abuse, substance issues, who's a piece of shit. Just sitting there wallowing in her own depressive juices in the woods. Domcom, that was probably the most, besides Nat Cassidy's I Know a Place, which was good. Domcom was the most accurate in its description. It is, I just didn't find it funny. It is meant to be a rom-com BDSM book. But once again, BDSM was light for a book that's a BDSM book. But then I've read like Sierra Simone and other BDSM books, which are BDSM books. So maybe for the mainstream, very vanilla audience, it would be considered a proper BDSM book. But like I said, the comedy wasn't there for me. So I didn't like the dynamic. Like I said, I Know a Place, that was great. That's what I was expecting. And A Spell for Drowning, or The Salt Bind, whatever it's called, that's also confusing. Like, pick a title. It's got both too on Goodreads, and it's just like, well, which one is it? that was just dull and very YA feeling, so YA feeling. And like I said, that promised like Buck the sea god, the, god that you do not make deals with. What a letdown. What a letdown. And then the final one, the Goblin book, which, yeah, was meant to be, how to lose a goblin in 10 days. Haha, funny. It's going to be these two, manipulating each other and doing shenanigans to try and be the winners, but at the same time falling for each other. And it just did not, it's just like, arguing and bickering and fighting. Oh, and racial slurs. Awesome. Cool. So, yeah. This is the case with NetGalley. I am committing to, I know a lot of people DNF, I know, and I probably would be happier if I just did that, but I've got some stupid thing where I'm like, well, I was given it for free in good faith to give a proper review, and I need to read the whole thing to give them feedback, and that's just a me thing. But it just sucks because it's like, well, am I incapable of choosing books that I like? Or is it just a disconnect between what they've written as a synopsis and what you end up receiving as a book? But then again, it's all colored by my own personal perceptions. So maybe someone else will think How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days is hilarious. I don't know. Maybe someone else thinks, yeah, rom-com is real raunchy and heavy on the BDSM and scandalous. Like, everyone has different experiences with the books. But yes, this was a bit of a bummer too. It's the final reading vlog for February, and it's hard when you read a whole lot of 1s and 2s. And the best rated was a 3.5. So am I still going to request on NetGalley? Yeah, because like I said, I got cut off from my library for requesting new books, and waiting over a year for my other one. It's just not worth it. By that time, the likelihood that I'm still really, really interested in reading that particular book is probably past, or I would have bought it myself. I would have found a way, to read it by that point. And when I say I mean like minimum, sometimes 2 years before the book comes in. But I might just use a NetGalley for like the most anticipated. So on this list, the most anticipated for me was Godfall and Hemlock. I'm pretty sure I did Hemlock, right, for my 2026. Let me just double check. I can do that. I can actually fact check myself. No, I don't want my New Year's resolution list. Where's my 26 most anticipated reads? I probably trashed it. Did I trash it? Recently deleted. Top boobs of 2025. Top boobs. No, that's not a good thing to do. 2026. Let me check. We haven't started off well. There's another book that I've already read from there, and that was also not great. Fuck me, man. Well, none of these on my list. Get Out of Town. I thought Hemlock was on there. Nope. And Godfall did Godfall not make the list either? Oh, wow. That's my bad. Obviously, yeah, I collated a first and master list of every book that was coming out in 2026, and then I cut it down to 26. So they were on the overall list. They didn't make my top 2026. So I think that's what I might do. I might just use it for the top 26, and that's if my library's not getting it in, and then and just do that. Sometimes though, I do on NetGalley, I do like to try and find maybe like self-published or indie stuff that's coming out that looks cool and give it a go. And to be honest, that's worked out better for me than these more popular traditionally published books. I might just tweak and play around with how I choose my selections on the NetGalley going forward, because there's a lot of time spent listening to books that I really didn't want to listen to. That's even worse than reading, because I'm committing so much more time. If I was reading a 200-page book, I'd probably get it done in under 2 hours, whereas if I'm listening to it, it's going to take me 6 hours or whatever the hell it takes. So I think that's probably why I'm extra salty, because I spent even more time. But look, they came in clutch. I was awake from 3 a.m. or whatever this morning, and my eyes were too sleepy to look at things, so I did have something to occupy my thoughts while I was just lying there exhausted, because there's no sound that will wake you up faster than a cat heaving, but unfortunately it didn't wake up quick enough to get her off the bed. I'm always like, why can't you vomit on the floor? We've got so many tiles and floored rooms. Any of those would be optimal, but you choose the worst place to vomit. But that's everything. for this vlog. Let me sum up everything I read. So we had Godfall by Van Jensen, narrated by Scott Merriman. I gave this 2 stars. A dead alien exposes the living mess of American fear, power, and identity. Hemlock by Melissa Faliveno, narrated by Kira Fix. A queer descent into addiction, inheritance, where the scariest thing in the woods might be coming from inside the house. We have rom-com by Adriana Anders, read by Lila Winters and E.M. Wild. A kinky one-night stand collides with corporate rivalry in a smart, sexy rom-com where consent is king and love breaks all the rules. I Know a Place by Nat Cassidy, which was my favourite read of this reading blog. I gave it 3.5. A knife-sharp horror travelogue that turns ordinary places into psychological sinkholes. Terrifying, funny, and sneakily emotional. How to Lose Goblin in 10 Days by Jessie, Sylva, narrated by Maggie Bain. I gave this 2 stars. A cozy fantasy rom-com where love grows through shared space, shared meals, and mutual respect, plus one very desirable cottage. And then the final book was A Spell for Drowning by Rebecca Ferrier, narrated by Charlie Sanderson, which I gave 2 stars. A salt-soaked folkloric fantasy where love, magic, and the sea all demand a price and none of them accept excuses. Those were all the books that I listened to. Let me know down below if you're an audiobook listener. There was like a stellar audiobook that you listen to. I don't come across many of these high production audiobooks, to be honest with you. They all tend to be like one narrator and fairly basic. I wouldn't mind a bit of theatre in my audiobooks. Let me know down below, but yeah. Also, let me know too if you've read any of your most anticipated releases this year, how that's going for you. It's not going great for me. Until next time, stay well, Star Child.